despite all of our problems, we are still the place where many of the world's smartest, most innovative thinkers and doers want to live and work.
We're moving faster in technological progress, and the immigration system hasn't kept up. None of the visa pathways really fit this new category of person, this technology entrepreneur.
What if there's an amazing person that I want to hire in September? Do I have to now wait until the spring of next year?
Why is there stasis governing this as opposed to movement?
Let us take this extremely complex, annoying, oftentimes frustrating process away from you.
We come as a partner. We want to be your guide. We take a what's possible mindset.
And now you get to continue doing your best work.
The need for high-skilled immigration is critical, and immigration is America's superpower. Just spreading that message that America is open for business.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Jim O'Shaughnessy with yet another Infinite Loops. Today, I have two guests who are trying to deal with one of my favorite soapbox issues, and that is this country's fucked up immigration policies. Today, I have joining me Minn Kim and Lisa Wehden, who are co-founders of Plymouth Street. I love the name, by the way, and the allusion that it makes to Plymouth Rock. Your objective here is to assist extraordinary talents in STEM for now with U.S. immigration processes. And, looking at your bios, my daughter is a stand-up comedian, and she had somebody come up to her after she did a set, and they said, well, aren't you just a little bundle of potential? And boy, aren't you both just bundles and bundles of potential. Lisa, you were at Bloomberg Beta, president of the Oxford Union. Oh my God, you're going to destroy me. Minn, Bloomberg Beta, and a violinist, also near and dear to my heart. I'm the former chairman of the Chamber of Music Society of Lincoln Center. Welcome. So tell me, what was the origin story here? Why did you both, with investment backgrounds, choose to launch Plymouth Street, which one would think maybe a legal background might be more helpful? And welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate you having us. As you can tell from my accent, I'm actually British. And so I'm an immigrant to the US. And one of the biggest challenges actually moving to the US was navigating the US immigration system. And so when I was growing up in the UK, I always had sites set up on building in America. I saw this as a hub of technological innovation. And one of the biggest challenges was, what is the right visa to come to the US? It always felt like a really, really difficult problem to solve. When I finally landed my dream job at Bloomberg Beta, my boss at the time said to me, we really love you. We want you to be here, but we're going to put you in the H-1B lottery, which actually means that your life is a lottery ticket system. You don't know if you're actually going to get the visa or not. And I was like, wow, this sounds really really confusing. Like, what if I don't get the lottery? Does that mean I have to stay where I was living at the time, which was Berlin? And I came to see this problem as one of the biggest blockers for talented immigrants to come and solve the problems that they wanted to solve in the US. So went through this personal journey of navigating 3 different visa pathways, the J1, the O1, and then the EB1 when I finally got my green card. And at the same time, I'd been working in the venture industry where I saw this challenge with other immigrants in the community who really struggled with navigating US immigration. And Minn and I both worked at a venture fund where we'd seen this problem with other talented immigrants struggling with US immigration. So I'll hand over to Minn because she also has a unique story.
And so my background is I was born in South Korea. I moved to the States when I was 9. And so as an immigrant, I'm also a proud immigrant daughter of serial entrepreneurs, where I've spent my entire life just seeing firsthand what it takes to build a company, scale a company. And then I ended up in venture, where Lisa and I met at Bloomberg Beta, where I was investing in some of the most advanced AI technologies. And a lot of the people that we were working with were brilliant immigrants who were scientists, researchers, experts in their field. And then I joined a startup where I saw more international talent wanting to come and build in the US at scale. You think about Africa, Israel, also across Europe and Asia. Many of the best people ultimately want to come here. And I see myself and Lisa and so many of the people that we serve as those same profiles of people who want to continue innovating. And America happens to continue to be a destination. And so Plymouth's mission is to help grow the pie of amazing people who can come here and build and find the right visa to be able to do so.
This has been one of my soapbox issues for a long, long time. I am absolutely gobsmacked that we have such horrible immigration policies, given the fact that despite all of our problems, we are still the place where many of the world's smartest, most innovative thinkers and doers want to live and work. And it just baffles me that we oftentimes educate them at some of our universities. And I used to say we should just staple a green card to any advanced STEM degree granted in this country. Why do you think we have such terrible policies regarding really switched on, talented people?
I think there is a lot of challenges with how the system has been designed, insofar as none of the visa pathways really fit this new category of person, this technology entrepreneur. A lot have been designed for previous skills that were very relevant and important. I mean, if you take the TN as a category, which is the visa that allows Canadians and Mexicans to come over and work in the US, it's a specific treaty visa. There is a list of professions, and entrepreneur is not on one of them. And so I think, unfortunately, immigration is stuck in a time where there were skills that the US desperately needed, and they designed systems around that. And now we're living in a very modern age where the diversity of skills that are needed, the profiles of individuals who are multifaceted and extremely talented are not suited for the specific visas that we currently have. I think there has been, in recent years, real recognition of those challenges. So there's been efforts to develop an entrepreneurial visa. There's been efforts to expand the category where we focus at Plymouth on the O1 to support brilliant scientists and engineers. But frankly, I think the answer is that it's outdated, and we're moving faster in technological progress, and the immigration system hasn't kept up.
Again, another one of my soapbox issues. Our government seems to be stuck in 1930, and it's almost 2030. So just 100 years or so out of date. Do you think that, hold out any hope personally that the American government will suddenly wake up and say, oh my gosh, all these brilliant people who are basically inventing the future want to live and work here, and change the policy so that it becomes a lot easier for those people to become U.S. residents and maybe ultimately citizens?
I think that's the ultimate mission and goal of Plymouth, right? We started with this O1 visa category, which historically it's known as the Extraordinary Persons Visa. And historically, it's been used most heavily by the entertainment industry. And so we took a lot of inspiration from what Hollywood does quite well, which is help really talented people from all over the globe, musicians, actors, creatives who want to come to the country. And they use the O1 as their stepping stone into the US. And the technology industry hasn't really mirrored that in being able to offer other exceptional individuals who don't always neatly fit the pre-existing categories of talent. And so we started with the O1 for that reason. And in large part, it's really possible now because of some of the policy initiatives that have shown up over the last 2 years. So there are a number of individuals who've been in the policy realm who've been working on this for a decade plus, and there were a number of clarifications to a couple of the visas that we support, including the O1, that said, hey, we actually really want more technologists to use this visa category because we know that the the other visa categories don't quite support the researchers, the scientists, the entrepreneurs who are innovating faster than policy can keep up sometimes. And that's why we are actually able to expand access to the O1 in the way that we do today. And in success, right now there's about 15,000 people every year who apply for the O1. And only about a third of them are technologists or individuals with STEM backgrounds, as we call it. And in success, we really want to 10 times that number because it's a wildly flexible and underused visa category that is uncapped. It's much more accessible than people think. And that's ultimately one of the big dreams and ambitions of Plymouth.
I don't really know that this is a tribal political problem. I had experiences when I was still doing a lot of traditional media that in the same week, I appeared on CNBC's Squawk Box, and in the green room was the then Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. And I asked him, hey, why don't you rationalize our immigration policy? And he had an immediate answer, which was, I have a bill in my desk. I want to co-sponsor, but it's a challenge. Later that week, I was on Bloomberg radio or TV, I can't remember which, but who should be in the green room but Hillary Clinton? And I asked her the same question, and she gave me the same answer. Why is there stasis governing this as opposed to movement?
One of the challenges, I think, with immigration is in part it gets lumped in with all other immigration, right? And so what we're doing is often extremely specialized, high-skilled immigration. And we started there in part because it is one of the segments of the technology industry and beyond where really talented people like you were mentioning, right? Like researchers, people who come here for their PhDs, and they don't always have a path to staying. So that's where we started. And that we find is generally bipartisan and generally has pretty broad support.
Obviously, to answer your question, there has been movement in this space. So the America Competes Act did propose a cap-exempt green card for STEM immigrants. And so that didn't ultimately end up making it in the compromise for the CHIPS Act bill that was ultimately announced. But I think there is tailwinds behind this issue around high-skilled immigration. There is recognition from both sides of the table that in this macroeconomic climate, in this political climate, the need for high-skilled immigration is critical, and immigration is America's superpower. When you take a step back and you look at the statistics, 55% of unicorn companies in America have been started by immigrants. The number of Nobel Prize winners who have immigrant backgrounds is enormous. And so I think when you're looking at the data, you can recognize that high-skilled immigration is a specific facet of immigration, and we are seeing a lot of movement. And to what Min alluded to, there have been clarifications around existing visa pathways to encourage more STEM individuals. There has been movement to try and create new pathways. Creating new pathways is extremely challenging, but we are seeing movement there.
One of the things I find really interesting about the way you approach this is you've developed a narrative mapping to enhance the applications. Talk to me a bit about that. That's very interesting.
A lot of what we do at Plymouth is craft a story about these individuals who are exceptional. And one of the things that the current way that these individuals are served by existing traditional attorneys and providers is what we've seen is there's a lack of context. When you have a brilliant engineer who has worked at an AI company on some really novel technology, Lisa and I come from venture and startup backgrounds, and part of what we do that's really special is that narrative mapping around, we know what AI is capable of. We know what it means to be a technical expert in that particular organization. And we have context about what it is that you are building. And so we can connect those dots to be able to clearly articulate to a layperson who might not actually know all of the, advances that are happening in the industry, exactly what that means and what the problem is, what the impact is, and be able to show that this individual is indeed an expert who's actually really innovating in that field. And that is actually one of the biggest challenges where smart people are not always great at boasting about themselves, to be honest. And part of this visa, the O1 in particular, that category, requires you to be quite, American about, about boasting about all of your amazing accomplishments. And so what we do is help them translate their professional and academic achievements to really highlight all of what makes them special. And in a lot of ways, what Lisa and I used to do in Venture is find really talented people and craft a story and help them see what an extraordinary person they are. And so a lot of those skills have been something that we've incorporated into being able to serve our new customers today.
Yeah, I love the nod to American approach to it. We're number one, when in fact we are often not even in the top 10. That's very interesting to me. In the UK, Lisa, there's the classic tall poppy syndrome. Is that also the case in other places, like, for example, South Korea? Is it a uniquely American trait to be so boastful and braggy?
It's an interesting one. I mean, we've served dozens and dozens of customers at this point. And I think if you are highly technical, some of the challenges is articulating your story in a comprehensive way. I think, it is, having lived in America for the past 4 years, it is a culture shock to come, and immediately people are saying, like, this is what I'm fantastic at. And I remember arriving in Silicon Valley, going to a meetup, and someone was like instantly like, what are you building? Where are you going? Like, what have you done? Like, tell me your story. And in the UK, we're just like much more reserved and wouldn't necessarily, sell yourself. I think, Silicon Valley does a very good job of this. There's a lot of entrepreneurial talent here who are sharing their stories, sharing their narratives. But I do think it is a unique part of American culture that is, wonderful, like your ability to be very optimistic and share the highlights about what you've created. And so a lot of what we do is we, support our customers who are international to, tell the US government why they're extraordinary. And it's sometimes uncomfortable and sometimes a little bit difficult. But I think, it's one of our, core skills at the company is like supporting people and telling their story, and specifically how it maps to the criteria that USCIS has said this is what extraordinary looks like. But I love that part of American culture, just being very open and willing to share, your what's great about you.
I did a lot of business in Canada, and I had a good friend up there who was head of RBC's asset management division, where we were a sub-advisor. And we had a night out, maybe too many glasses of wine. And he started going on and on about how, I love American bravado. He said, you know what I love about you, the Americans? It's like, no, we're going to build it bigger, faster, smarter, stronger. And that does seem to be, there's a book whose thesis is interesting called The Hypomanic Edge, which posits that the reason America developed this way was because we are essentially a nation of immigrants. And what are some of the things that typified, especially earlier immigrants who we are the sons and daughters of, was this idea of super high agency, willingness to seek risk. In other words, everyone here left their homes, left their families, left their cultures, and said, you know what, I'm going to get on that ship and I'm going to go over there and give it a go. In today's world, I think that is not necessarily universal. We work a lot with highly technical seed stage founders. And one of the things that I can definitely agree with you on is the more technically competent of those. I always joke, what you really need is you need to find a word cell to be your co-founder here, because they are, very non-braggy, very specific, very, well, no, I can't say that because that is not technically the way it works, right? And do you find, though, that the storytelling aspect, how does that intersect with the highly legal aspect of navigating like an O1 visa? Are you sometimes getting rejected simply not because of the story, but just by the legal framework in which that narrative and story reside?
It's a great question. Ultimately, well, for one, we've been quite lucky and fortunate at Plymouth. We believe we're quite good at what we do. So we've had very few pushbacks from USCIS with our customers to date. One of the things that I think we do quite well is in that translation, the interpretation of the specific criteria and language from a legal perspective that USCIS wants to hear. We've worked with some really exceptional attorneys and immigration experts who've been in the field for decades to really understand and be able to articulate when someone who's a researcher in, machine learning has created this particular novel technology. How do we then translate that in a way that maps to what USCIS considers original, right? What is the definition of original? And what is the definition of majorly significant? And those interpretations do have legal grounding. And so what we do is actually work with our legal partners and attorneys and on our team to be able to really ensure that how we translate these individuals' accomplishments does map to those legal arguments.
That brings up the question of as you're learning, as you have more and more clients for your services and successes and failures, it does seem that a lot of the information, and of course this is the quant in me, and so I apologize ahead of time, is more anecdotal. Are you working on building a more empirically supported methodology that you can share not only with potential applicants, but with legislatures, policymakers, et cetera?
Yeah, so maybe I can explain how these petitions work. There are 8 different criteria, and you have to meet 3 of them to prove that you have extraordinary ability. Each of these criteria can be broken down into specific requirements you have to prove. And USCIS is actually very open about that, around, how do you break down what is considered extraordinary membership in the field of endeavor? So say you're in a field like artificial intelligence, maybe you're part of communities and membership organizations that are related to artificial intelligence. And so we have developed a specific methodology at Plymouth to really break down each of the components that USCIS asks us for and show, not tell USCIS why this person is extraordinary. So historically, O1 petitions have been done in this very narrative style without so much substance. And Plymouth has come along, and actually our methodology is to be super concise and super precise about language as it maps onto the criteria. And then we show USCIS with hard documentation exactly how someone meets the standard. And so we've actually published an educational booklet explaining each of the criteria, breaking it down. One of our mission is to grow the number of people utilizing this visa pathway. And so we do a lot around free resources. If you look at our website, we've got a lot of blog posts sharing these different criteria, how you can meet them, a very comprehensive resource guide. And we're excited about supporting other individuals, even if they don't come with Plymouth. It's like, can they actually find the support that they need? The other aspect is we're part of a bigger coalition. And so Plymouth, when we set out to solve this problem of immigration, people thought we were crazy. You can't solve US immigration. That is the hardest challenge you could possibly take on. And we started thinking about this really deeply. How could we solve this multifaceted problem, and what place could we play? Because Min and I come from venture backgrounds. We're not policy experts. We're not legal experts. Where could we play, and where could we play and win? Because, we're competitive people. And so we're like, if we want to solve this problem, how can we solve this problem really well? And so I think one of the smart things we did is we built up a coalition. And so we're part of a bigger group of people working on this problem. So we partnered with this group called the Institute for Progress, who do enormous work on the policy side to change the face of US immigration. And so they release regular reports. They do a lot of media communications. They work with policy experts in DC to feed back the insights, the data on the ground that we gather when we're doing our petitions. And so sometimes we get information from USCIS where they say, this doesn't actually meet the standard. And so we consolidate that information and share it back to our policy partners so that they understand how to make much more rigorous guidelines for these criteria. We also partnered with philanthropists. And so we're partnered with an organization called Schmidt Futures, who does a lot of work on building communities of STEM talent. And so being part of this coalition, you can see Plymouth as a practitioner on the ground supporting people with these visas. We've got policy experts on one side who really support us on communicating the data that we've gathered to push the boundaries of policy. And then we have philanthropists who are working to expand the community of STEM individuals who know about these visa categories. And so,
yeah. And the last one I would add is actually you're asking about what is like the broader impact of what we can achieve. And as the practitioners on the ground, we are serving hundreds and hundreds of individuals over the course of our company's career. And that means we will have data about what these people like do, who they are, what roles they occupy, what types of organizations they are starting or joining. And we actually will have real-time guidance on these are the new categories of fields that are emerging, right? When we talk about like quantum computing, that is like a rapidly evolving field. And we actually are serving some of like the foremost preeminent, researchers and scientists in that field. And so we can feed those back into like some of these partners. And the last partnership that we have are with economists. And so Tyler Cowen and the Emergent Ventures community at George Mason University, they really we can deliver for them over time really important guidance on like here are the individuals and the impact of all of these immigrants on the country and our like economic impact, right? And so I think that broader coalition gives us the opportunity to be able to share information with the broader community and ultimately provide a lot of transparency around U.S. immigration, because what we find is a lot of these visa categories, individuals don't get access to them, not because they are not capable, but because they don't always have agency around the on the information. There's like a lack of education within the market. And historically, a lot of that information has only resided amongst, a handful of practitioners and experts. And we want to give any individual much more agency, being able to advocate for themselves that these are the categories of visas that are accessible and available to me, and I would like to pursue one path or the other.
That brings up the question of, obviously, there's a lot of commonalities between the people that you are helping. Obviously, they're all extraordinarily bright and capable. What are some of the problems that your applicants might face, and how do you? And by that I mean, both personally and or the category isn't quite right for them. How do you work with them and ameliorate those problems and make them fit better into the process?
So one of the more interesting things that we've done recently is that a lot of technologists don't want to just work for one employer. And so you can imagine that you're a brilliant AI researcher or quantum physicist, and you have multiple job offers, and you don't actually just want to work for one employer that fits you very narrowly in a box. And so one of the, I think, big innovations at Plymouth is that we've broadened access to this route called the O1 agent. So the O1 agent is very commonly used in the entertainment industry. And so if you're a model or actress or actor, you have a talent agent who manages your suite of engagements in the US. And so you might be doing a film in Colorado and then doing another film in New York, and you're moving all around the country. This is also possible for technologists. It's just previously not been advocated for by traditional practitioners, because it's a little bit more complicated in how you prove out your suite of engagements. And so it's amazing for people who have multiple engagements in the US over the course of their career. And so we've supported individuals to go through this agent route. So they have an agent who manages their different contracts, and you're not tied to one employer. So you can do multiple engagements in the US. And so you could be working for OpenAI and working for Anthropic. Maybe they wouldn't let you for conflict of interest, but that is possible with this route, which I think is really exciting for individuals who don't want to be tied to just one job, which is true in the H-1B and true with the more traditional O1 route, which is the O1 employer. I think the other component of the O1, which I think is so undervalued and actually incredible, is that if you're not eligible today for an O1, you can become eligible. And so when I met with attorneys, they told me point blank, you're not eligible for an O1, you're not extraordinary. I got very frustrated by this.
Ouch.
Brutal, absolutely brutal. And I wanted to know, I was looking at the criteria and I was like, I think I could get a membership. I could, I could author an article, on some of the work that I've been doing, but they didn't give me education around how I could improve my criteria. And so a lot of individuals we work with will come and say like, look, I've played a critical role for a company that I've worked with that has a lot of venture funding, has a distinguished reputation in the field. Maybe they've been highly paid in their country. So in England, the salaries are quite low. And so maybe if you're a technologist in the UK, you've been paid higher than other individuals in your field. But that means you've only got 2 out of the 8 criteria and you need 3. And so what we do is we say, look, you could actually work on your profile to become eligible in the next 2, 3, 6 months to become eligible for this pathway. And so a lot of the work we do is we support individuals to connect with membership organizations, to judging opportunities. We can, support them with guidance around like, this is what meets the press criteria. This is what meets the authorship criteria. And we've had a lot of individuals in our community come back after 3 months and say, look, I've actually done the work and I'm eligible now. And so it gives people an enormous sense of agency where it's not just, no, go away, we're not going to talk to you. It's actually, hey, we can help you. We take a what's possible mindset, because a lot of technology individuals have very unusual backgrounds. We've worked with open source developers who don't have the classic status symbol of, a previous time. Like maybe they haven't joined traditional membership organizations in their field. They're an open source developer. And so we really work with them to think about what's possible with their pre-existing portfolio and then support them with additional ways to become eligible for this pathway.
And we apply that what's possible mindset with employers. Like the other side of this is actually the companies and the employers who are hiring these really talented individuals. Ultimately, the O1 is a work visa. And so anyone who is applying for it needs to have a job or multiple jobs if you're doing the agent path. And what we do really well is actually help employers really think about immigration as a strategic advantage for them and their employees. Because if you are building an exceptional company in these like emerging critical industries, then maybe actually all the talent are, there's like 3 critical engineers that you really want to hire from Canada or from, Eastern Europe or somewhere. And we can actually help educate and guide the employer to help understand, hey, for these 3 different profiles, these are the immigration strategies and the sequence of potential visas, if they are not eligible for an O1 today, that you can take and work with Plymouth over the course of 3 to 12 months to really be able to help move a number of talent over. And I think that's been like a really big an eye-opener for a lot of employers who previously the default has been, oh, if I have a foreign national that I need to hire, I guess I'll wait for the H-1B lottery. And for many of the most ambitious individuals, both employers and individuals alike, that's just not good enough, right? That's like kind of leaving people in the dark when it comes to, well, what if there's an amazing person that I want to hire in September? Do I have to now wait until the spring of next year and then, have single-digit percentage likelihood of that person winning the lottery? And that, I think, is a failure in some ways of our current system as it is to be able to support some of the most innovative companies in the field.
That's one of the central ideas when we launched O'Shaughnessy Ventures was that you can work for other people. You can work from anywhere. Actually, I'm going to get to that in a little bit because that seems like it might be a trend that might slow down people's desire to physically move to the United States. But back to the agent idea, is there any worry that they become beholden to the agent?
No. So with the agent, actually, you don't have an employment engagement with the agent, and you don't have any requirements to split your compensation. Actually, the agent's role is to oversee the itinerary, and so you can add as many engagements as you want up to like, I can't imagine you doing like 100 engagements, but it actually is possible. And so the the agent's role is not one of an employer. It's not one of taking compensation. And so we've worked with a number of clients at this point we work with a great agent based on the East Coast, and they have a great relationship. And the requirement from the individual is to update your itinerary when you get new engagements. And so the agent acts as basically a memory or a record of all the engagements that you have in the US.
And is the incentive for the agent, is that kind of a top of funnel? Are most agents actually looking to collect a portfolio of talent on their own? Are they VCs? What's the background of the agents?
So this is a super new pathway for technologists, and so we haven't seen many new agent organizations emerge. I think it's a super interesting space for someone to explore. I mean, your practice could be an agent. Like, it's actually not. It's like very, very possible. And I think it's very common in the entertainment industry. There's hundreds and hundreds of agents. In the technology and business industry, there's not that many. And so one of the things that we've been working on is basically supporting entertainment agents who are interested in expanding their practice to technology professionals, because they have a lot of experience working on agent petitions. But, I'd love to see a whole host of new agents emerge, because I think there's a really smart strategy here, as you identified, for VC firms, talent aggregators, communities who are really interested in this group of people.
The difference there, though, of course, is that entertainment agents traditionally take a percentage of their clients' earnings. What, other than the idea that it might be very wise for a VC to collect talent, right? What other incentives and or business model, if you will, could you build around the case for becoming an agent for these brilliant potential immigrants?
Yeah, so we've seen there's like a one-time fee. So people pay for this agency service. And then I think there's tons of different models that you could do. You could do an ISA model, you could do a percentage of earnings. I don't love those models.
Yeah, I think one of the most compelling things about that is, for individuals, it's almost like a recruiting opportunity, right? And so you must meet like thousands of individuals, right? Like a traditional venture capitalist meets with 1,000+ individuals every year. You only really get to invest in a handful of founders. Now, that being said, there are probably hundreds of other really competent, exceptional individuals that you want to keep, around, like in your network and community. And maybe one of the biggest value, like quote unquote value adds, right, of like a really great investor is helping you hire or connect you with like really great talent. And I think if someone were to explore the O1 agent like business model, there is, I truly think one of the most valuable things you could do is connect them to like the next critical hire, right? And is that actually a model that you can explore when it comes to sharing with your founders, like, hey, we can actually serve as an agent if there's this really amazing engineer or technical hire that might want to work with a couple of different portfolio companies at a given moment in time. There's something really interesting there, I think, worth exploring.
The idea of the agent collecting talent, I think, is interesting. But back to your company. You, from my looking at all the research on you guys are doing an amazing job, but you're doing a very highly individualized service, right? It seems to me, at least. Let's say you're incredibly successful. How does this scale?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the most exciting things that we're building at Plymouth. We both come from technology backgrounds. We were venture investors, and so we are very cognizant of this idea of scaling our core product. And so we went to market supporting individuals. And so they have SMBs, like small companies that we're working with. Behind the scenes, we built a very sophisticated technology platform that can currently do O1 and EB1 visas much faster than providers in the market. Now, over time, our vision is to become an all-in-one platform for employers across the country to power their immigration services. And so this year, we're expanding to other visa categories. And so we're supporting individuals with TNs, H-1Bs, L1s, and there are a suite of green card categories that we're excited by. And I think that the innovation in this space is how do we advance, how can we scale something that has previously been unscalable? Min and I both come from backgrounds where we've explored workflow tools. We've studied them as students, and we've been like, okay, we can understand the secret sauce behind this. And so, to not give away our secrets, a lot of our company is powered by technology. It's a human in the loop product, but we have really broken down the different components of these visa categories, and we've built a technology that really solves a lot of these challenges.
Something we do really uniquely is, in some ways, we need the domain expertise of like our attorneys that we work with. But one of the insights we had was, a good portion of the visa preparation and application process really comes down to data management, document collection, and a lot of things that can be addressed with better software, right? And we don't have priors of how it's been done before because we don't have, 4 years of law school and 6 years of working inside of a law firm and how, senior attorneys and paralegals like to work. And so we were able to approach the problem from like a very first principles, like how would you do this today, net new? And the answer to that ultimately became, oh, well, you're stitching together a process that is 100 steps. You know what point A is, and you know what the final output's supposed to be. So let's work backwards. And actually, where are the levers where we can deploy automations and be really smart about how we make this experience more smooth for the end user, right? The ultimate customer who's applying for this. And so, I like to say there's about 20% of the company that customers and other individuals see. And then there's about 80% under the iceberg that most people don't see. And that is actually where a lot of our innovations are happening, where it is that stitching together of all the different processes and leveraging software and building our own technology to be able to do so much more efficiently.
You can think of comparables like you might have seen like Stripe Atlas as a product, or TurboTax is an older version of this. You only see the tip of the iceberg as a user of this product, and behind the scenes there's this cascade of action that's happening behind the scenes to really drive the process forward.
Yeah, as I was preparing for our chat, I went right there because I've invested in quite a bit of AI startups. And so I've got that up in the brain. I just think, okay, so this could be really, really helped significantly by building out a background structure, bottom of the iceberg, as you put it. But I'm also a pretty big believer in human in the loop, right? I think Centaur models for AI, i.e. man, woman plus machine, are going to ultimately, at least for the next few years, be the ones that really distinguish themselves rather than just purely automated or purely human. One of the aspects that I really took away from this is it's a pretty emotional process for people and can take a pretty big emotional toll, I would guess. How do you deal with that? What are your strategies?
It's such a good question because the problem we're solving is such a human one. I think it's one of the biggest challenges someone faces is their immigration journey. And we are very mindful of individuals having access to someone that they can communicate with around their visa status and every step of their journey. One of the things when we were exploring how to solve this problem was how can we do it better than what's existing on traditional providers? We weren't going to come in if the service was already good. One of the biggest challenges is transparency. So traditional practitioners don't tell you exactly the status of your petition at any given time, the steps moving forward, the likelihood of success, what's possible mindset of where is that agency around your petition and what you can do. And so I think coming at this problem with much more empathy of individuals who are going through this process, Min and I are both immigrants to America. And so we're really mindful of how stressful and how alone this problem can make you feel. And we come as a partner. We want to be your guide. So you should never be in the dark about what's happening, your story, how it's being told, and ultimately having full agency over the outcome of your case. And so that's something that we're really mindful of, like infusing our product with empathy and being much more human about this process than cold, transactional information over email.
The flip side to that, I will say, on the emotional front is we also have the privilege of supporting people who are genuinely so brilliant, right? If anything, it's such an honor to be able to say, hey, let us take this extremely complex, annoying, oftentimes frustrating process away from you. Let us abstract that away, ensure that you feel held throughout the process in the right ways. And then, knock on wood, when we succeed, we get to celebrate that with them. And it's such a gratifying and exciting moment to be able to say, hey, you did this, right? And you were able to actually succeed. And now you get to continue doing your best work. And so I think we're really mindful of ensuring that the experience is really cared for. And then ultimately, I think, there are low days and hard days, but, the good days are like really, really special and such a privilege.
And you both seem incredibly tuned in to that side of it. And I've often found that mistakes are a learning-rich environment. Talk about some of the missteps or mistakes that might have happened and what you learned from them and how you changed your process because of that learning.
Gosh, this is like company building insights, right? There's so many. I mean, one that comes top of mind, I think, that Lisa and I care a lot about is the type of team that we build. And I think, we've been operating Plymouth for about 15 months now. And we've been really intentional about the kind, like how we hire, who we hire, how do we set up those individuals for success. And I think a painful lesson that we both had to learn early on was there's a trope in startup culture around fire fast when someone is not working out. And I think that was something that we learned firsthand just around, it is true. Like if someone this isn't like a enjoyable process for anyone involved. And we want to be really, really thoughtful about how we do that and ensuring that we've set that person maximally up for success. But it is a tried and true lesson, I think, in, company building lore. And that's one that I think we've been really thoughtful about not repeating to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I've started several companies, and luckily I learned that fairly early. And the strategy I would use would be to basically sit with the person and say, it's not you, it's just a question of the fit. And, you're probably going to fit somewhere else much, much better. I had a friend who was a little more caustic than me, he joked that when he was having those conversations, he would give him one chance. And he said, I would say, we're going to have this conversation one more time, and then you're going to have it somewhere else with someone else. I'm like, John, whoa. But it does seem to me that, where you live and work is kind of like the heart and soul. And so I'm really happy to hear that you're doing that as well. But what about on the other side? What about on your client's side? How do you break the news if they don't get the visa? Do you give them next steps? What's the process?
So we've been really lucky where all our O1s have been approved. And so we haven't had to face that challenge yet. We do anticipate it happening at some point. I think we have spent a lot of time crafting a product that is as extraordinary as the individuals that we're serving. And so we take very deliberate steps to support individuals and ensure that the quality of work matches the quality of their story. We really are refining that. I think on the customer side, when we do face that outcome, there is always a plan of action moving forward. You don't want to be stuck in a position where, okay, well, I didn't get it. What can I do now? And so really mapping out someone's journey and thinking through steps 2, 3, and 4. An immigrant's journey is not just a visa at one point in time. Often they're thinking about their long-term strategy. And the great thing about the O1 is if you're not eligible today, you can reapply. Like, that's totally possible. There's also other categories that you can apply for. And so it's taking that guide mentality that we have at Plymouth. It's like, we are your guides. And so, if this outcome is not favorable, we will work with you to think about best strategies moving forward so that you're not alone in your immigration journey.
You can probably hear it in how we talk about it, but in our customer obsession, something that we drive home across our entire team and to ourselves is our success is actually helping the customers get to the finish line, right? It isn't just when the application goes out to USCIS and we throw our hands up and say, oh, it's out of our hands. It's like, no, actually, the final outcome and ensuring that this individual knows exactly what the next steps are in their visa journey, in their immigration journey, that is ultimately our success.
I just can't help doing it when I look at and have the wonderful opportunity to chat with brilliant people like yourselves. I also kind of look at the business model aspect of it. And one of the things that I noted as I was getting ready to chat with you was it seems to me that you face in what you're doing a number of external shocks over which you have really no control. Policies change, administrations come and go. What's your way of facing that in terms of all of these externalities, again, which you have zero control over? Is it just agility?
Yeah, I think it comes back to our agency mindset. We've built a coalition. So to talk about these externalities, is there another administration that's not very favorable to the type of immigration that we're advocating for? We've actually seen a lot of policy progress there to make it a bipartisan issue and really advocating for more nuance around this immigration conversation, because ultimately immigration is America's superpower. And that's the core of what we believe at Plymouth. And can we change a broader conversation around, acknowledging that these individuals are powering progress. They're powering technology progress, economic progress, scientific progress. How can we elevate those individuals and showcase their talents around what they're bringing to America? And so I think there is movement there. And what we do is build this coalition to really support some of the challenges there too. There is a recognition that on the product side, there could be delays in people's immigration processing. And so we're mindful of ensuring that our transparency to our customers is around what's in our hands versus what's in the processing hands of the government. And there are mechanisms that we can have in place to really speed up if there are unreasonable delays. So that's something that we're mindful of.
The other side of it, I think, just in terms of Plymouth's macro environment is we currently serve a lot of startup and fast growing technology companies. But in success, we don't only want to serve the technology industry. There are technologists that go into many, many other industries, right? We're seeing innovations in manufacturing, in semiconductors, in biotech, in all sorts of these new fields. And in success, something that we think a lot about is we're not just coastal elites supporting a bunch of other coastal elites. We really want this to be, we are powering America's progress, right? We're powering global progress by ensuring that the very best, the best, have the flexibility and ability to move to the destination they want to, whatever the best visa is for them. And I think that hopefully, over the long run, irrespective of administration changes, policy changes, that is hopefully a vision that we can all get behind, that the best of the best deserve and have earned the right to be able to build where they want to go. And that goes beyond just startups and tech.
Totally. And again, you're preaching to the choir here. So, I could not support what you're doing more fully. How do you think about things I would think, how could they have any opposition at all? But there it is. There seems to be a doomer mentality that is, it's, thank God it's not the dominant one, but it certainly exists. And then there's other factors, again, over which you have no control. Like if the U.S. went into recession, for example, would you think it would be harder to get these exceptional people, or would actually that be a plus for you? It's like, okay, we're in a recession, but look, what's one of the best ways out of a recession is to load up the country with all these super smart people. But then other things like data privacy and, potential legal challenges. I guess what I'm asking is, these to me all seem like risks. How do you de-risk for those?
We've thought a lot about de-risking. I mean, we're founders first and foremost. And so without getting too into the weeds, we prioritize them accordingly, where we have set up the coalition of experts around us so that they can also help us be educated around upcoming changes in the environment that we operate in, right? Our attorney partners and legal experts around the table, this isn't the first time they've faced administration challenges, policy changes. If anything, Lisa and I are constantly learning from them because they've been in the industry for so long. And when we see something new, they go, oh, that happened 5 years ago. This is like what the aftershocks were. This is something to expect. And I think we have the benefit of building on the shoulders of giants, right? And so when we think about de-risking the business, we have a responsibility to our customers, like first and foremost, to ensure that the core product that we promise them gets delivered. And then the macro environment changes that happen. I think we've kind of set the stage for ourselves to be able to play defense when we need to.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the several risks, legal expertise, we've brought on the best attorneys that have supported this group of people who have over a decade of experience in the field. The coalition we've built up on the policy and the economic side so that we can really track the impact at a broader conversation level around the talent that we're bringing in. On the recession side, totally hear you around like some of the impact on employers who slow down hiring this group of people. On the flip side, that does create an opportunity for small businesses to grow. And so we see a lot of immigrant talent innovating and building new technology companies. And you have to be much more strategic around the types of capital you bring on. Maybe you move faster to actually get customer revenue. And so, 55% of immigrants, unicorns are built by immigrants, and some of the best companies are built during a recession. So we're seeing some of that opportunity as well. And so, Min and I, as founders, we think about risks constantly. I think it's one of our biggest jobs as company founders, like what are the risks at play? And so we've thought about de-risking the legal component. We've thought about de-risking the policy and the economics component. I think in the recession side, a lot of our customers are innovators at the startup level.
As I was looking at you, I was kind of thinking, well, what's next? It seems to me that with all of the data that you're collecting, you could build out a business that was like, here are the global trends in employment. And that could be a subscription service. I love the way you're world building and bringing in the right partners and everything. What do you think could derail? Because I think I might be a little captive of my priors here, but I kind of feel like we're reaching a tipping point and people are maybe returning to sanity about, I wonder what is controversial about letting these super brilliant people come and live and work. And even if you're the government, most importantly, pay taxes here. 55%, as you note, of the unicorn founders, immigrants. That is historically consistent, by the way. You can go all the way back to some of the greatest companies in this country, and that number doesn't change. What do you see, or do you see anything on the horizon that derails this?
I think the question is, do immigrants want to come? And I think that has been the messaging at a global level around, is America open for business? And we saw previously quite intense messaging saying, America is not open for business in lots of ways for these high-skilled immigrants. We have other countries, Canada, the UK, a lot of Eastern European countries, Portugal, innovating in immigration strategies to recruit and retain the best and the brightest. And so can America revamp its messaging as the home of immigrants? Like, that is America's core superpower. And one of our missions at Plymouth is to advocate for this and to change the conversation to say, yes, there are visa pathways for you to come and build these extraordinary companies. Our mission is to accelerate technological progress by enabling the movement of highly skilled talent globally. We still believe, and we fundamentally believe, that America is the best place to build the access to capital, the access to talent, the access to these extraordinary resources that you have here. And so I think being part of a larger conversation, and this conversation is a great example of just spreading that message and really encouraging the message that America is open for business.
Because that ultimately is a cultural shift. And that's a big thing that I think you're right. I agree, where we're at this tipping point where we get to choose what does it mean to redefine what America stands for, right? And part of why we want to highlight so many of the customers and the individuals that we support and the companies is because so much of that cultural identity, I think, has been mixed up over the last, 2 decades or so. And in being able to showcase, this is what America stands for. This is what the face of innovation look like. And these are the individuals who are actually bringing upon that change, I think will be a huge mitigating effect, hopefully, and being able to shift the cultural conversation in the direction of we can all agree that progress is great and progress is good for America. And ultimately that continues to help America be the destination, because agglomeration effects, I'm sure you've seen, are really real. And if we don't defend it, then we run the risk of losing it. And I think that's kind of this pivotal era that we're living through, where we have the opportunity to be able to ensure that this remains the destination for many of the best.
Amen. I mean, you're, again, like I say, you're preaching to the choir here. I think it's an amazingly important thing for people to, you want to be on the right side here. And we've got, and I shouldn't put it that way, other people's opinions doesn't necessarily make them on the wrong side. But your use of the American Open for Business, that's a great tagline, because we really do still enjoy this ridiculous advantage over virtually all other countries, and currently at least. But, I suspect that many are not going to let the grass grow underneath their feet, and they're going to come up with, like in much the same way the state of Texas used to have a concierge service for businesses moving from California to Texas. They got very, very aggressive. And it just seemed weird to me that, boy, you'd think that every state would want the smartest, best people in the world to be living and working there. And yet that isn't always the case. Have you been at all affected by the current kerfuffle going on around DEI in this country, or does that not touch your particular type applicant?
No, I think high agency people today, and the company and the employers hiring them, they want competent people who can build, and we're ultimately just doing that. And so we haven't bumped up against any of that particular cultural conversation.
I have a very clever British friend named George Mack, who has this razor where he says, if you see something on Reddit, it might be interesting and actionable because you're early. If you see it on LinkedIn, you're way too late. How do you skate to, I'm not a sports guy, but I think there's the famous saying, skate to where the puck is, not where it has been. How do you align your business with that kind of attitude?
The attitude of
sort of seeing, how do you gather your knowledge for what's next, and then potentially augment the way you present your service to your clients?
Yeah, so I think, we started in the market with lots of small businesses, startups that need support for their founders. One of the things we're super excited by is enabling companies as they grow to think of recruiting talent as a strategy and immigration as a strategy. We've seen immigration being in HR and in legal departments and being very confusing and very difficult. And for a founder, the most important thing is your talent of your company. How can you recruit and retain the very best? And we think immigration, if you are as a company amazing at immigration, you've really figured out your policy, your provider, you're thinking about it as a talent recruitment and retention strategy, then that is a superpower, and that's where your competitive advantage is. And so one of the things we're doing is working with a lot of employers to understand how to be much more creative around their visa pathways, how they can attract the very best talent internationally. And this is particularly true for fields where there's fierce competition for talent. And so we work with a lot of AI companies who have specialist roles. And if you can provide a suite of services for this group of people thinking through their immigration as a strategy, they might come over on a J1 or an O1, but long term they want to get the green card, and you can provide that package. It's much more desirable for talent. And so to date, we've been working with a lot of small startups. Over time, we want to work with America's best employers to really support immigration as a strategy and ensuring that this is a top priority for those individuals.
Would a natural extension be to also get into the headhunting business and kind of package it up that way?
There are lots of extensible opportunities when you have a captive audience of customers. I think at the end of the day, we will listen to what our customers need, right? That's how we've sequenced the different categories of visas outside of the O1 and the EB1, where we've heard from our customers to say, oh, actually, I have amazing talent from Canada. Can we do a TN? I have this amazing individuals who won the lottery, but they're stuck at their last company. And what's the fastest path to helping them, navigate to my startup? And beyond, I think, yes, there are recruiting opportunities for us, opportunities to work with other integration providers just around employment, right? Like lots of HR tools often need immigration data around what segment, what portion of their employee base come from different countries. If there is some event in those countries, like how do you best help navigate those employees to a different location or a different visa if needed? We see a lot of exciting opportunities down the road, even just around the core technology that we build, right? If part of our mission is to help lots of other people access these visa categories, there's a world where some of the proprietary, tools that we're building, they don't have to necessarily be proprietary to us if that's not actually necessarily the differentiating factor that helps Plymouth win. Then analogy of Amazon built AWS for themselves and then eventually repackaged it for lots of other technology companies. There are opportunities, I think, for us in that domain as well.
Because at the core of it, it's matching the most high-skilled talent to opportunity. And we're doing that with immigration, but there's a ton of different opportunities there to ensure that high-skilled talent is working on the most maximally ambitious projects that can really have technological progress.
I love it. Do you have plans for, non-STEM geniuses, artists, writers, other right-brained types? Do you see your process being extendable to those different categories?
100%, yeah.
We have some amazing, you need great commercial leaders at organizations. You need amazing people who are writers, content creators. We haven't dipped our toes directly into the entertainment industry, but because we are borrowing some of their best practices, there's no reason that I think down the road, we're quite excited by the different types of talent that emerge. And ultimately at our core, we want to serve really great talent. And where that takes us might be in all sorts of creative endeavors.
What about the growing trend of work from anywhere? As I mentioned earlier, Shaughnessy Ventures, we have a work from anywhere policy. So our team members are distributed globally. We have many in India. We have people in Africa, literally all over the map. Do you think that the idea that you can change your digital zip code a lot easier than your physical one? Do you think that impacts people's desires to physically move and come to this country?
So there's a lot of companies that can offer that and work very successfully. Maybe I can share some insights from our customers. We worked with a company called Lindy AI, which is focusing on building AI agents for customer workflows. And they actually had a fully remote policy. And so during COVID, their team was spread out all across the world. And they realized actually that when they were doing team on-sites, they were just far more productive in person. And because they're building quite sophisticated technology, it requires a lot of different conversations that they were having in person to move much faster. So Lindy actually brought over 3 individuals very quickly, and we supported them to come back because they were bucking this trend of remote working. We've actually seen that happen with a lot of companies recently, especially in San Francisco, where they're seeing that, at the startup stage, being in person means that you can move significantly faster on your product progress. And so we actually feel like there is a trend against remote work, at least for the customers we serve, as opposed to an increasing desire for these individuals to work remotely. We've also seen that with some of our other customers. They have brilliant engineers in Europe and in Asia, and they're desperate to bring their engineers over. And they've been told that, the H-1B is a lottery ticket system. And so we do a lot of education to provide an alternative pathway for them. And so, I think remote work has brought huge benefits, and I'm not against remote work. I think that it is suited for certain types of companies. For our customer segment, we're actually seeing more people want to be in person, and so that's a benefit for Plymouth.
So what's next? You've had incredible success over the short period that you've been doing this. Well, George, nearly 2 years. What do you hope to build on that? And is this what you want to do? Are you doing your life's work here, as my son would ask people? Or do you see this as a stepping stone to either an expansion of the company itself or potentially an exit through sale?
I think we're really lucky, but I think Lisa and I are doing our life's work. We've spent our entire careers working on finding the exceptional talent, supporting them through their journey, right? I think in some ways, unlocking really talented people at various junctures of their career. This is very much one of the most critical ones, immigration. This 2024 will be an exciting year for scaling Plymouth. And so that's like a big part of our focus in terms of we have an amazing team, we have some amazing customers, and we want to really just drive home the fact that we're here. Plymouth is ready, our doors are open, and we want to be able to serve thousands of individuals over the course of the next 12 months. And that will take a lot of work for us. Lisa and I will be very busy this year. But I think that we have this incredible foundation that we now get to scale our impact. And over the course of 10, 20 years, we don't plan on going anywhere. So I think really it comes back to the question you just asked earlier around what are the expansionary opportunities that will reveal themselves to us over the course of, the subsequent many years.
Yeah, I think with Plymouth, our mission is to accelerate technological progress by enabling highly skilled talent to move globally. That mission is not going to be fulfilled in the next year, the year after. We're going to get very much closer. We can see ourselves, a decade out, still being very excited by this mission. We've taken on a huge, very complex problem to solve, and we still feel like every single day is at the beginning of what's possible. And so, Min and I have spent our careers in venture and talent investing. This is a natural extension, and we get to solve such a meaningful problem for our customers and take that to scale. And can't think of a more exciting mission to work on every single day.
Well, you can certainly count me among your many fans who are rooting for you to succeed beyond your wildest imaginations, because your success beyond your wildest imagination means success for the country and for the people that you're bringing over. So what I love about what you're doing is it's such a win-win category. And gosh, I wish more people, not wishing you competition, but I wish more people would be trying to facilitate this, because it's such, to me at least, it's such an obvious unlock that we have put a bunch of padlocks on that don't belong there. And I'm delighted to see that you are both doing this and succeeding at it. How do people find you?
We are online at plymouthstreet.com. You can find us also, the two of us, on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're fairly easy to Google. But if anyone is interested or exploring these different visa categories that we discussed with you, you can just drop us a line on our website.
Well, let me encourage all of our listeners and viewers, if you are an exceptional talent in these fields, don't walk to their website, because I think that this is an extraordinary time. I think we're entering the exponential age. I am delighted that I'm still around to see it. And if you've listened to other episodes of the podcast, Lisa and Min, you know that at the end, you both are going to get a turn on this. So we're going to get 4 really great inceptions. But we're going to make each of you emperor of the world. And you can't kill anybody. You can't put anyone in a re-education camp. But you can take a magical microphone and speak 2 things into it that will incept all 8 billion people in the world. Everyone that wakes up tomorrow is going to wake up and think, I've just had 2 of the greatest ideas, and I'm going to act on them. The idea of agency being very, very important. So, Min, let's start with you. What 2 things are you going to incept into the world's population?
It is always a good time to write an email to someone you respect and admire and tell them how they changed your life. That's one. And then the second is everyone should think about having healthy, happy families and how to build them.
Love
that. That is also the other American dream.
Totally agree. Lisa?
So I think the first one is write every single day. Write down your thoughts, write down, might be for you, it might end up being for many, but make that a practice. And the second is you may feel replaceable at work, but you're never replaceable with your family.
Wow. I love all 4 of those. And I think in addition to the wonderful work you are doing, helping people come over here and innovate and build a better future, those would be great 4 things. The world would become a much, much better place if we could inculcate that kind of behavior and those kinds of thoughts. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. I'm a huge believer in what you're doing, and I wish you the absolute best success that you can achieve. I think you are going to get much further than maybe even you think. So I'm delighted with what you're doing.
Jim, it's been a privilege. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.